I'm sorry, no customers are allowed in this area, sir.
That's very sensible.
And absolutely no smoking.
Oh, I don't smoke them. No, I just chew them. Geez, that's very fascinating what you're doing there. Is that a carburetor? That's a carburetor, isn't
sir,
it?
no customers.
I understand.
If you'll just wait up front, sir.
Oh, I'm not a customer. I'm Lieutenant Cologne. I'm with Homicide. I'm investigating the death of Hiram Price in the big house up there on the hill.
Oh, yeah, the guy that was attacked by his pet cheetah, right?
Well, that's the way it looks, but, there's just a couple of points I'm trying to clear up.
Oh, yeah, one of my customers, Toby Frank, was telling me about it.
Well, now, it's about Mr. Frank that I wanted to talk to you. He, has a motorcycle.
Oh, he sure does.
Right.
A beauty with a sidecar.
Right. You see, I got a little problem. We can't figure out how the cheetah got from Mr. Price's ranch out in the valley to his house here in town. I don't know.
He didn't bring it in?
Well, there were no paw prints in the Packard. Now, Mr. Frank says that he couldn't have brought in the cheetah because the battery was dead on his motorcycle, and there's no way he could have recharged it in time. Now, they tell me you know all there is to know about batteries. Now, I want you to teach me everything you know.
Well, it took me a couple of years to learn.
Oh, well, let's see here. What? Oh, get this cheap thing. Oh, my birthday's coming up. What can you do in about 20 minutes?
Just the very basics.
Well, let's go.
20 minutes from now, you should be able to describe a battery's function, construction, and operation, identify conventional and maintenance-free batteries, set up and test a new battery, and be able to charge a battery properly.
That all sounds fine. Oh,
The battery on a motorcycle is used almost constantly as a stable source of electrical current. Its biggest job is to power the starter. Its size is chosen with that in mind, and it's matched with the cycle's charging system.
well, that shows you what I know. I always think of those old movies where the guy starts with his foot.
Well, CRs use Kickstarters, and they don't have lights. And their ignition system is easily powered by a small alternator, so they don't have batteries. But most other models do, because they have electric starters, lights, and accessories, and even things that draw current when the key is off, like clocks and computer memory circuits.
Computers?
Yes, sir. For those models, a battery is indispensable. A battery is a device that stores electrical energy in a chemical form. When you charge a battery, a chemical reaction takes place, storing energy from the charger. And it remains in that form until some electrical component makes a demand on the battery, reversing the process and drawing electricity out.
All right.
But maybe I'm telling you things you already know.
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know very much. It's all I can do to change the batteries on my flashlight.
Well, technically, those aren't even batteries. They're cells.
Cells. Now you're using words that I know. Keep going.
A cell is a single unit with two terminals, each connected to a plate or a group of plates. One plate becomes the positive electrode, the other the negative electrode. The positive and negative plates don't touch each other. There's a separator between them, but the separator is porous, so all areas of the plates are immersed in common in a solution called the electrolyte. Your flashlight batteries are dry cells, and most dry cells can't be recharged. But these lead-acid batteries can be charged and discharged over and over. The necessary chemical action which releases electricity takes place between lead in the cell plates and sulfuric acid in the electrolyte. Now, a battery is two or more of these cells connected in series, one after the other. Each cell is capable of producing just over 2 volts. And the sum of all the cells is the battery's potential. As you can see, each of our batteries contains 6 cells.
How can I see that?
Simple. Count the caps. Each cap is 1 cell.
6 cells, 2 volts each, 12 volts potential.
Hey, Lieutenant, you catch on fast.
Just a second. Is that, liquid in there?
Yes, sir. That's the electrolyte.
That's the electrolyte.
Sulfuric acid and water.
And what does the acid do?
That's the fun part.
Oh.
At the heart of every battery, there's a very simple chemical reaction. When the battery is fully charged, the plates are mostly lead. The electrolyte surrounding them is high in sulfuric acid. As the battery discharges, The acid decomposes, giving up sulfur ions, which combine with the lead in the plates to form lead sulfate. Now, the energy that's created by this reaction is carried away from the battery into the motorcycle surface.
Hold on just a second. Sorry. I just want to make sure that I got that. You know, I don't know why I ever became a cop. I'm terrible about the details. Do you have a pencil?
Oh.
Thanks. When the battery's discharging, sulfuric acid is becoming water, lead is becoming sulfate, energy is released.
When the battery is functioning properly, when you're using it properly, you can reverse the process completely. The motorcycle's charging system recharges the battery after each discharge. This causes the lead sulfate in the plates to give up its sulfur to combine with the water again as sulfuric acid. The key is, it requires energy to keep the sulfur in solution. So in effect, you're storing the energy that you're putting in.
So that lead sulfate, that's good.
It's an essential part of the reaction.
Well, the reason I ask is, I'm having a little trouble with my car.
Yeah, what kind of a car is it?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know. I bought it from my brother-in-law and, well, anyway, they said I needed a new battery because it was, sulfated.
We use the term sulfated to refer to a battery where the charge-discharge cycle has gone a little sour.
Oh.
Usually that's because the electrolyte level has gotten low and exposed the plates to the air.
Oh.
Or the battery's been allowed to sit for a long time without regular charging.
Oh.
Now, you want all of the lead in the plates to be involved in the chemical reaction. But if the battery discharges very slowly, in storage, for instance,
Right.
then the lead sulfate has a chance to form a crystalline layer which can coat some or all of the plate surface, similar to the way rust coats a piece of iron.
Oh.
If this sulfation only covers a small portion of the plates, it reduces the strength of the battery, its amp-hour capacity, by that amount, which may or may not render the battery useless.
I see.
But if it covers the entire plate surface, the sulfation acts as an insulator and the plates can't react with the acid anymore.
Oh.
Our reversible reaction comes to a halt and the battery is permanently damaged. These are just general observations, you understand. Not all batteries are alike.
They threw mine out. Sulfation. Is that what happened to Mr. Frank's battery? He said it had been stored.
Well, yes, his was sulfated, but we replaced it with a new one last week.
A brand new battery?
Yes, sir. I set it up myself.
Set it up.
I followed the battery preparation guidelines exactly.
Oh, well,
All our new batteries are stored level in a cool, dry spot before they're activated. After Mr. Frank bought his, I filled it all the way up to the high mark with electrolyte and left the battery caps loosened. I allowed it to sit for 10 minutes. I charged it on our new charger with the timer in the new bat position. I let it cool for 30 minutes. I checked it out on the new battery tester. Finally, since it was a conventional battery, I checked the electrolyte level again and made the necessary adjustments before I installed it on Mr. Frank's cycle. Maintenance-free batteries are even simpler because all you have to do is use this special six-pack. The electrolyte is pre-measured for each cell, and you don't have to top it off. The reason why you sometimes have to top off a conventional battery is on account of the air bubbles that are trapped in the solution. So you wait about 10 minutes to let them escape. You usually find that the level has gone down. After I charged the battery, I checked it on the battery tester to be sure everything was okay. Then I checked the electrolyte level again and added a bit more. That battery got TLC.
you say that's a conventional battery.
Yes, sir. We have two main types of batteries. Conventional and MF, or maintenance-free.
Right. But only the maintenance-free batteries get filled with this. It seems so convenient.
The electrolytes are completely different. Well, not completely. They both have sulfuric acid and distilled water, but the concentrations are different. We measure that by testing the specific gravity. Specific gravity, that just means what does it weigh compared to the same volume of water. Now, for convenience, we say that water weighs 1.000.
1.000.
Okay, then you measure the same volume of conventional electrolyte, and it should weigh about 1.265 times as much. That's its rating, 1.265. And that's because the sulfuric acid in the electrolyte is heavier than the water. Now, that rating is telling us the concentration of the sulfuric acid.
Okay.
Of course, in a battery, that would also tell us the state of charge. Electrolyte in an MF battery has a different rating, a rating of 1.320.
1.3. I knew that.
Now, both batteries, both types of batteries, have their own electrolyte, and you mustn't mix them together or substitute one for the other. And that's why this six-pack is used only for the MF battery. I have a container of conventional electrolyte. I'll show you how we test it for specific gravity.
You're taking a lot of precautions.
You're darn right. Electrolyte isn't something you want to fool with. Now, this is a brand new box of electrolyte. Conventional electrolyte.
Conventional.
And I always like to check it just to be sure that it isn't diluted below 1.265. In the past, we also did this test to check the specific gravity or state of charge of electrolyte while it was in the battery by taking the battery caps off and drawing some electrolyte into this hydrometer.
Those caps on a maintenance-free battery don't look removable.
Oh, they're not. You see, now we only use the hydrometer tests on 6-volt batteries. The new Honda battery tester takes care of all the 12-volt batteries, including maintenance-free.
Now, Mr. Frank's battery, that's a conventional battery.
Yes, sir. Conventional batteries aren't sealed, and they use a standard electrolyte, so there are a couple of conditions you got to watch out for.
The acid must slosh around.
It can, and as I said, it's very hazardous stuff.
Oh. And does the electrolyte evaporate?
Yeah, it does. Well, the distilled water evaporates. See, when the battery is nearly fully charged, energy is still coming in from the charging circuit, but very little sulfuric acid is being produced at this point. Instead, the water begins to break down.
And that's different from evaporation.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
The water breaks
Right.
down into hydrogen and oxygen gas, which vents from these cells.
Oh. That's why,
That's why.
Oh, well.
The
look,
fumes are very explosive.
It's dead. I'll put that away.
Gassing can also be caused by using excessive amperage during the charging process. But a maintenance-free battery has different plates, separators, electrolyte, even a special venting system. To live up to its name, this battery is sealed to prevent fluid losses due to evaporation and gassing.
Oh.
Instead, the gassing is absorbed internally. There's a safety valve that helps to relieve internal pressure before it rises to a dangerous level.
Right.
The MF battery is self-sufficient, so you just seal it permanently and leave it alone. In fact, if you try to open the caps later, you'll damage the sealing surfaces and ruin the battery.
You must set this up differently.
No, sir, not really. Except that you have to be sure to use the special electrolyte, and you can't judge how much to put in just by looking, because the separators absorb most of the electrolyte. And that's why they make the battery case opaque, so that you won't try to fill it by eye. We always use this special six-pack to fill an MF battery. The correct amount is pre-measured for each cell. Two very common mistakes are to use the wrong electrolyte or to use the right electrolyte, but try to fill the battery in the conventional way.
That'd be too much.
Way too much.
This MF battery sounds like it has some real advantages.
Well, there's no water level to watch, and it self-discharges at a much slower rate.
Mr. Frank, when he bought a brand new battery, why didn't he buy a maintenance-free battery?
Oh, his cycle's charging system and his battery mounting hardware aren't compatible with an MF battery.
Oh.
Unless it came from the factory with an MF battery, it isn't recommended as a replacement.
So Mr. Frank had a brand new conventional battery that was fully charged when he got it.
We ask the same question you do a lot.
Huh?
What's the charge?
Well, I usually know the charge in my line of work.
In the past, there were different ways to check the state of charge on a motorcycle battery, but most of these have been made obsolete by the new Honda battery tester. If you're checking a 12-volt battery, this is the only way. You see, you can't just attach a voltmeter to an idle battery and expect to get an accurate reading. If the battery's not doing work when you test it, the reading you get can be wildly optimistic. This tester has a built-in resistor that loads the battery at the moment of the test.
Speaking of test, I just happen to have brought a battery.
You did?
Oh. Got him. I'd like to test this battery. Will you show me how?
Certainly.
Oh, good.
There are just two things you need to know to use this tester. The room temperature, high or low, that's above or below 60 degrees Fahrenheit,
60 degrees.
and the capacity of the battery that you're testing.
I thought these were all 12-volt batteries.
Oh, no, that's their voltage. Capacity tells you how long and how heavily you can use a battery and still get a useful voltage.
Oh.
Yeah. But each cell in each of these batteries is limited by its chemical action to 2.2 volts maximum. But these bigger batteries have bigger sized cells that offer a greater capacity, and they deliver more amps, or the same amps, but more hours. That's why capacity is rated in amp hours.
Oh, keep going. Don't mind me.
After you've correctly connected the battery to the terminal leads, and you've set the temperature switch to high or low, then you find the test button, which corresponds to the capacity of the battery that you're testing. And you press it for 3 seconds. Now, this tester is capable of handling batteries rated up to 30 amp hours, but you've got to be careful to allow 1 minute between each test, 30 minutes after every 10 tests, because the tester can overheat. Now, for the first test, we never do any charging. But if you get a reading in the yellow or the red, we'll charge your battery and retest it once the charging cycle is complete. These numbers on the battery tester correspond to the battery charger's timer knob. So whatever reading you get here, you just set the charger's timer to that same number and you're all set. The tester instructions have a simple flow chart showing the correct sequence of testing, charging, retesting. And it even helps you decide if the battery's good or if you should get rid of it.
Geez, it's almost automatic, isn't it?
Well, almost.
Well, let's see how we do.
This battery is tip-top.
Isn't that amazing? And that's the battery off Mr. Frank's motorcycle. The one that he said was dead. And it's fine. And nobody's touched it. How do we explain that?
Well, I don't know. If it was extremely cold on the night of the murder, the battery wouldn't function well.
A battery doesn't hold its charge well when it's cold?
On the contrary, a battery holds its charge better when it's cold.
Oh.
In fact, it holds it so well, it often won't release enough energy to start the engine. But a battery should be stored where it's cold. In fact, if you keep it cold enough, a battery in storage will stay charged almost indefinitely.
But wouldn't it freeze?
A fully charged battery won't freeze until it hits 70 degrees below zero. But a discharged battery, where the electrolyte is mostly water, will freeze at 17 degrees above zero.
It wasn't cold that night. Give me another reason. He claims his battery was dead, and we find it charged.
I don't know. Maybe somebody charged it.
Well, how long would that take?
Well, the old-fashioned way, it would take quite a while. But we've got something new. Christie's new battery charger saves a whole lot of time. We charge batteries around here all the time. Even new batteries that are dry charged before shipment need an additional charge before they're sent out.
I see.
We charge all our batteries when we activate them. If for some reason they have to sit here for several weeks or months after activation, we make sure that they remain unsulfated by testing them and recharging them about once every 2 weeks. It used to be much harder to calculate charging times for new and used batteries, but this new combination of tester and charger takes the mystery out of charging times, and it charges the batteries at the correct rate for the entire duration.
Ah, I see.
As you say, it almost does everything for you. If the battery is being activated for a new cycle sale, you just set the charger's timer knob to the new bat position and set the amp selector to the correct range.
Oh.
In all other cases, including an activated new battery that's been sitting for over 2 weeks, you just use the tester and read the recommended setting off the meter.
Why couldn't I get the same results with a different battery charger?
With an ordinary charger, the voltage remains constant, and the current drops off slowly as the charge comes up. To compensate for this decrease, you need to lengthen the charging time, but you don't know how much to lengthen it. The decrease in current is so drastic that it's often nearly impossible to figure out the exact amount of time necessary to fully charge a battery. After the current drops to a mere trickle, it could take days to bring it up to 100% charge. The new Christie charger is just the opposite. The charging current remains constant and the voltage varies. Some batteries may require over 20 volts initially because of internal resistance, and ordinary chargers just haven't got that ability. With the new Christie, all you have to do is charge the battery as prescribed by the tester's meter reading, and that's it. Some new batteries that ordinarily would take hours and hours to charge can now be charged in as little as 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
That's right. And you know, that's a big plus with an anxious customer that comes in and wants to take delivery as soon as possible.
You mean you could be done in as little as 30 minutes?
Well, sure, but like I said, everything is dictated by the tester's meter reading.
Easy to operate?
Very. Switch off, select the battery amperage rating, set the timer based on your test of the charge already present. This battery tested at -2, so I'll set it here. Attach the clamps and turn on the power. The charger does the rest. When this timer reaches the trickle position, the battery is fully charged. A quick test to confirm that, and you're done.
30 minutes?
It could take that long, but as I said, everything depends on the tester's meter reading.
Gee, that's wonderful. Even I could do that. Even Mr. Frank could do that.
Oh, he could if he had one of these chargers.
But he doesn't.
Only Honda.
Aha. I see.
Mr. Frank would have to charge the old-fashioned way. He could try a quick charge, but that would risk overcharging. And that means the battery overheating and the electrolyte breaking down and so on.
I don't think he did that. Why would he do that? He'd want us to find the battery dead to support his alibi. And when we checked it, and it wasn't dead, we suspected Mr. Frank, just as the killer knew we would.
Gee, Lieutenant, it looks like I've been some help.
Oh, you have. Absolutely. The killer was very clever.
You don't think Mr. Frank did it?
No. Someone tampered with Mr. Frank's motorcycle to convince him that his battery was dead. Then, they used his motorcycle and sidecar to transport the cheetah up here to Hill House and kill Mr. Price.
What'd they do, replace his battery with a dead one?
Oh, no. The killer was much more clever than that. He knew that we would check the battery for Mr. Frank's fingerprints. And sure enough, we found them. No, he switched batteries twice. First, he removed the good battery and put in a dead one of exactly the same make and appearance. He knew Mr. Frank would look at the battery because the battery was new. After Mr. Frank tried and failed to start the motorcycle and went back inside, the killer removed the bad battery and put in the good one. The charged one. The one with Mr. Frank's fingerprints. And he borrowed the cycle. And later, when we checked the battery, everything seemed perfectly normal. And it had to be someone who knew all about batteries. Someone who knew Mr. Frank's schedule and where he kept his motorcycle and what kind of battery he had. Someone who had access to new batteries, fully charged, and cheetah scratches. You killed Mr. Price. You've been showing me your cells, Mark. I think it's time I showed you one of mine.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Price. I guess I must have dozed off.
Mark, we've been closed for 2 hours. You know, I've been working you too hard. Why don't you go home and get some sack time?
Oh, Thanks, Mr. Price.
Take off, will you? And you, Cheetah, I'm gonna get you some milk.